Hi, I'm Doug Stevenson for Press Plus One. I'm very happy to be joined by Lisa Fitzgibbons, the Executive Director of the Documentary Organization of Canada. And I thought we'd start off just by you saying maybe a couple of quick things about what the DOC is all about.
Sure. The Documentary Organization of Canada is a national organization of members who are producers, directors, and craftspeople that work in Canadian documentary industry. So we do a lot of advocacy work, we do professional development, and we do research as well.
And how would somebody become a member?
They would join. It's very simple. Yeah. You have to go on our website at docorg.ca and, click to join, and there you go. You're part of a community, you're part of a network. We have a electronic bulletin board that is very active, and people use it to say, does anyone know a camera operator in Tucson, Arizona, or somebody in, I need to get to Dhaka in Bangladesh, and how do I bring my equipment, and so on and so forth. So I like to say that the listserv deals with the political, the ethical, and the technical, and the financial parts of documentary.
Okay. So there's lots that people can just talk about without having to meet face to face.
Absolutely. And the thing is, because we have different committees working on, advocacy issues or membership issues or things like that, people do get to know each other over the phone, funnily enough. Yeah. And then when they meet, they go, oh,
you look like this.
Is that what you look like? Yeah.
And, you just mentioned hot docs. Obviously, it's a pretty important part of documentary in Canada. How does that tie in with the DOC?
Well, DOC founded Hot Docs. So DOC started 30 years ago. It was then called the Canadian Independent Film Caucus, and then it turned into the Documentary Organization of Canada. And the members at the time felt that there was a need to celebrate, what they did. And so they started this festival, and they wanted to have audiences come, and it just grew and grew, and it grew so rapidly that at one point it had to hive off and become its own thing. But there's still a very strong relationship between the two organizations. Even at the board level, half of the Hot Doc board is comprised of DOC members. Okay. And so there's a very tight relationship between the two organizations.
Okay, nice. And obviously there are a lot of smaller festivals too. I'm part of one in Belleville. It's called Downtown Doc Fest. How important are the smaller organizations, especially for people who are growing their documentary career?
I think, every festival is critical. What it does is that it develops audiences for the genre. So what we see is that when filmmakers are starting their careers, often they'll start in documentary in some cases, and then they learn the tricks of the trade, and then they, eventually move on to drama if that's their interest. Yeah. Some directors like to delve into both the non-fiction and the fiction world. But documentary is the most accessible film genre. So they start there. And so it's an opportunity, obviously, the smaller festivals are an opportunity for the filmmakers to get their film seen in smaller venues, be in touch with the audiences. Audiences get to see documentary, which is gaining in popularity more and more. So that's a really nice thing.
Do you have any idea how many of the smaller festivals there might be across Canada? I mean, I guess what I mean is not an exact number, but are there, dozens, or maybe only 5 or 6, or?
Documentary specifically, we are probably talking about, I think documentary specific, less than half a dozen.
Okay, so a small number. So very important to support the local ones as well as Hot Docs. And one of the things that's really exciting that you're working on right now is this project of making documentary the Canadian National Art Form, right?
Yes. Okay. So we feel that there are very few things that, Canadians can claim their own,
Poutine, hockey.
That's right. And we'd like to add documentary to that, because we have championed the form, and we believe that it should be declared Canada's national art form. We excel at it. Our documentaries are respected the world over. Canada is the only country in the world to have a government production house with the National Film Board. So that is, specific to documentary. And of course they do other things like animation and experimental drama, although less and less. But their main strength has always been with documentary. And all of the other state-run production houses have gone the way of the dinosaur. And we still have the National Film Board, but it has nurtured a culture of documentary filmmakers in our country. So it's the way that we view the world, and it's the way we as Canadian people are, that actually makes us an interesting candidates to become Canadian, filmmakers.
Yeah. And there's been a lot about social media on that campaign. How important is social media for something like that, and just for the Documentary Organization of Canada in general, as well as the chapters throughout Canada?
Well, social media is critical, but I think right now where we're really seeing social media and documentary come together is with crowdfunding.
Okay.
So filmmakers now are turning to the public before they start their films, and they're saying, hey, you know what, I'm thinking of making this film and I'm looking for support. And they create these campaigns, and people are encouraged to contribute, and the filmmakers have a dialogue with the audiences. The audience shape the film as well, because the filmmakers are interested in what the audiences have to contribute and have to say. And we are definitely seeing the power of social media to support, these projects that audiences believe in. Yeah. And that's an interesting relationship.
I guess that's it. If you get success in the crowdfunding, then you have to figure that it could be successful as a film itself.
Well, you've already started to develop your audience. Yeah. And if you're working with a broadcaster, it's very interesting, because then you find yourself saying, hey, you know what? I've built up this audience for this film, and I'm going to bring this audience to the final product. So that's also a very interesting relationship change between broadcasters and filmmakers.
Nice. So there's obviously lots going on all the way across the country. Is there anything else exciting that we should be keeping our eyes out for? I mean, obviously the new website, but other projects?
Well, Doc will be releasing an economic profile at the end of May, so that's a bit dry. But it's an interesting sort of picture that gives us a sense of how the industry is performing overall. DOCSA is just about to start, or has just started, in Vancouver, and of course in the fall in Montreal there's the Rencontre Internationale du Documentaire de Montréal. Okay. So it's a very interesting time to follow documentary. And the other initiative that started is an initiative led by a DOC member called Get on the DOC Bus. Okay. And she's leaving from Victoria and traveling right across Canada to see where all these community screenings are, because that's where documentary really sort of takes its entire meaning. It's in connecting with the audience and engaging in conversations, because that's what documentaries are good for.
Right. Before we wrap up, one thing that I want to mention, because I discovered it about a week ago when I was looking at the website, is the neat history that you've got on there. You mentioned that it's kind of morphed over those 30 years, and someone's done a great job of tracking who was involved, what the main projects were, and that sort of thing. So I do want to encourage people to go to the DOC website in order to check that out, among other things. And if they're going to that website, what's the address?
It's docorg, in one word, .ca.
Well, Lisa, I thank you very much, not only for the interview, but also for getting me to exercise a little bit of French, which I haven't done in a very long time. So thank you so much, and all the best.
Thank you, Doug.